right. We're here in the studios at Amerikin, KIN. We're diversity is our culture. And here we have who I know as Lancer, Bboy Lancer.
What up? What up? What up?
Welcome. And how long have we known each other?
That's a really good question. I'd say 2004, 2005.
Yeah?
Yeah. Because I felt like I started coming into the scene when I was about 16.
Okay.
Started breaking in 2001. I was about 13, so 3 years. Yeah, 2004, 2005.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're still in San Diego, right?
Yes.
Cool. All right.
Based out of
And
San
real
Diego.
quick, what's your background again? And were you born here or first, second generation?
Oh, yeah. I was born in Hoi Sai, Laos, small country in Southeast Asia. I came to America right before I was 2 years old, so 1989. I was born in 88. Been raised in San Diego, so I would say I'm pretty much San Diegan.
Okay, cool. And you're a skater too.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. So when did you start breaking?
I started breaking December 2001. Skating was my first love. That's what I always call it. Skating was my first love. And then I started breaking in, December 2001.
Okay. Going into diversity, how was it growing up in the States for how old you were?
So I was raised in Southeast San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
And where I was Market Street and Imperial. I would say it was heavily Mexican, Chicano, black, and for the Asians, it would be mainly Lao folks, actually. So a lot of Lao. There was a huge Lao community in where I was because Market Street had, I think it was the original Theravada Lao Buddhist temple in America. So when a lot of refugees and a lot of immigrants from Laos, when they came to America, they always, congregated to the centers, and the centers was mainly the Buddhist temples.
Okay.
And so I feel like where I grew up, it was a lot of people of color, but mainly Mexican, black, and Lao folks. I mean, other Asians as well, but.
All right. And did you
where I grew
feel segregated? Did you feel separated? Did you feel accepted?
No, I didn't feel
Within your
segregated
neighborhood.
at all. Yeah, I mean, I didn't feel segregated at all. Before a lot of the younger folks, when we were growing up, again, we were skating a lot. I love skating, and I would the people in my neighborhood. I consider all of them kind of like my younger brothers and sisters,
Okay.
So I would get them to skate. I would try to cause a trend, so that they could because there was a lot of gang, a lot of gang stuff going on. But in our neighborhood, everyone was cool. We knew this was our spot to play, football, to go skate around the block. I think the hate was more from gangs that were a lot of ethnic conflict, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of gangs were ethnic within themselves, so they would fight each other based off of that. But I didn't feel segregated, Maybe there was a lot of conflict going on, I didn't feel I feel like it was more about tension and coming of age versus being flat out racist.
Got it. No,
Yeah.
I mean, for me, when I started skating, 86, something like that, 86, 88.
Mm-hmm.
And my group of friends, we had, diverse groups of people, but
Mm-hmm.
it was all about skating and skills.
Yep.
And that's what's dope about hip hop. It
Yep.
don't matter where you come from, but
Mm-hmm.
we have this commonality. Oh, you break? Let's exchange.
Yeah.
And who you are, what you look like, didn't matter.
Yep.
You just understood the movement and the love for music.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's
And,
cool.
and skating was like that too early on, because it was you would be the best on this block, you would be the best on that block, and that block I'd be I want to play skate against these cats, because that's the commonality. Everyone's yo, this dude is dope in skating. Or people would ride bikes too, but I'd be I'd challenge that guy to skate, let's play, whoever the illest person is. And for me, it was a good way to connect with people,
Mm-hmm.
because I wasn't into the other stuff that they were doing, right? I wasn't really into the other things. We didn't go to the same school, we didn't have the same cliques, but we were all cool because we were skaters. And then that kind of translated into breaking itself. It was a natural transition. When we all started breaking, it was we all knew each other already. We all wanted to break.
That's what's up. Let's go into that. So you skated for how long?
I would say 7 years, 8 years.
And then you got in the
Yeah.
hip hop.
Yep.
Okay.
So I was about 13, I believe, when I made the decision. So, growing up, I had a lot of cousins, a lot of people on the block. They were all gangsters too, but they were breaking. They actually liked breaking, and I wasn't really into it. But I would see people dance to like freestyle music. Stevie B.
Oh, yeah.
They would bump music, freestyle music on their hatchbacks, and rave music, right? But they would be doing like flares and windmills or like whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was cool, but at that time I was heavy into skating. But then subliminally, like I think it helped because I went to the library to look up breaking stuff. This is crazy. Like back when there's dial-up at Malcolm X library, I didn't have internet at home.
Wow.
I would go to the library, and for some reason I was like, oh, let me look up some breaking stuff, And then at the mall, Mr. Rags.
Oh, yes.
Right? Remember Mr. Rags?
Wow, you're dating yourself. But yeah, I do remember.
Yeah, Plaza Bonita, and I would see breaking videos. At the time, I didn't know, but the video I saw was Rock Force versus the Family.
Wow.
Because they were doing, I remember that scene where they were all doing like up rocking.
Yeah.
Right? And then
I think that was 99.
99.
Yeah.
But they would play that tape. I mean, that was like the in thing, even if it was like early 2000s, right? But I kept seeing it. When we finally had internet at home, I was like, let me see what some breaking stuff is, And I saw like really from Kazaa, bro, like Napster and like that LimeWire era, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at breaking clips. There was like Battle of the Year clips, like highlights. I was watching a bunch of highlights, and I just got sucked into it. I got sucked into the music because it was all funky, and I didn't know people were breaking to this stuff because, I was growing up to like rock music and gangster rap.
Okay.
Like rock music and gangster rap were like my thing in the radio, and alternative rock, like freestyle music. But I never really heard breaks. I never really heard funk, like in that regard, and people were breaking to it.
Okay.
So then I spent like an entire month of absorbing information from the library and like from my home when I finally had like internet and whatnot. And December 2001, I remember I was like, I'm gonna buy these videos online, like how to break. It was called How to Break Dance, right? By Mikey Garcia. And it was a freaking...
That's great.
And even during that time, I was borrowing videos from my soon-to-be crewmates,
Okay.
At the time in middle school. I was not downloading. I was borrowing like VHSs from like all my Filipino homies, right? And one of them or two of them were the nephew of Charles from Soul Control. So I was watching like
Oh, wow.
Cujo solo videos,
Okay.
like solo videos from Cujo, Out for Fame, West Coast Finals. I was just watching like all this breaking stuff, and I was like, whoa, like this is some real shit.
And you connected to that.
Yeah, and that's what started it all. And I was like, I gotta learn how to break. Like I'm learning, but I gotta buy some more videos and learn. And that's what really kicked it off. Like I could keep going on about how things started, but that was pretty much the catalyst.
That was a good foundation. And then it spread from there with jams in San Diego.
Yeah, because I didn't, obviously there's some street stuff, right? So you taught yourself, and for me, I watched videos, soaked it all up, try to break, and then try to teach my friends and my homies and my little brother.
Well, that's a golden generation for b-boys and just hip hop. Our crew did the same thing. We looked for tapes, exchanged them, and then we went into the lab, the garage, and we just studied each other and we helped each other. Not like nowadays. It's completely different. Like if you want it, you dig and dig and dig and dig, and you could appreciate that. It's not you're not feeding yourself with a silver spoon.
Yeah, I love that. I love that way hip hop, like the digging.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's underrated now. People don't really know about the digging, right? The digging for knowledge, or like the search for it within yourself and within the people around you.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I straight up bought linoleum and put it in my front yard, right? Where like there were trees, things were falling on us, and I would sweep every like 3 minutes, But I was breaking, and people were like, man, that's funny, man. Why? Let's go skate. They were like, yo, this is whack. They're like, breaking is dead. This is 2001, 2002, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the summer when we're just all trying to explore ourselves too. And I was like, no, this is dope. Like I like this. And then eventually like the fever caught on to others,
Oh yeah,
but rolling out that 6x8 linoleum in the front yard, man, like in the dirtiest places, like that's where things became organic. And, And you're right, it's like no garage, but still a front yard kind of thing. So hip hop, I love that.
So what was your first jam in San Diego?
My very first, I would call it like it was a hip hop function. It was a Pokies thing, the cipher.
The Cypher.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my older cousin, he started seeing that I was really into breaking,
Okay.
and he was like, "Oh, like, let me take you to a spot." And I was in high school, right? So I had school the next day. I believe it was a Thursday night, and he was like, "Let me take you to a spot." I forgot where it was, but it was a cafe joint.
Yeah, it's Hot Monkey Love.
There you go, Hot
Yeah,
Monkey
yeah.
Love Cafe. So I went, and I was breaking there, and it just felt so hip hop. Like, you know,
So
like,
that was
I was a kid.
Wow, I
very,
probably didn't
very,
recognize
very
you
first.
at that point because we were
Yeah.
battling Sasso and Godoyski, and
Oh, really?
that's when
Yeah.
they got in, and well, more Sasso got in at Hot Monkey Love.
Yeah, and well, that night there was only, I believe there was only one other b-boy besides me. It must have been a quiet, the cipher night, like a Hot Monkey Love night, because it was me, and then it was this guy from Boston. It's crazy. I can't believe I forgot his name now because we were like cool for a little bit. But I forgot his name. But it was like we weren't battling, but we were we were ciphering. And,
Okay.
but it was just me and him, so like, it wasn't a battle though, you know.
Got it.
There was no competition too at that particular one. It was people just actually ciphering, right? Like, and then we would be breaking, we would be ciphering too. But that was like my very first taste of like outside of Southeast San Diego, like outside my front yard kind of
That's
thing.
exciting.
Yeah, and I was like, again, I was like 15 or 16. Like I had school the next day kind of thing. You know, my cousin took me out. I came home at like 12. Like that was unheard of for me. Like it was just so dope. And then my first breaking jam was the Elemental at the Mac Community Charter School.
Wow.
Yeah, that
I
was
remember
my
that
first
too,
one.
man.
And my very first battle was against Sasso and Eddie. I think, well, they were the people we lost to, Beans and Rice. And there was a third guy.
Okay.
I forgot. But we did a prelim battle, I believe. And I didn't battle with my crew at the time. I battled with people in high school that I battled with, or like that I went to school with, you know?
Okay.
But that was my first jam. And I remember it to this day, man, because that was when I called out Jeremy from GFX. We were kind of rivals, and that was when me and Dino started hearing about each other, so we were starting to be rivals. But yeah, I remember battling Sasso and Eddie. There was a third guy, but I keep forgetting who it was. But I remember that because I remember talking to Eddie, like outside the Mac Community Charter School.
Eddie from
Rock So
Rock So
Fresh.
Fresh.
Yes,
Got it,
Eddie
okay.
from Rock So Fresh. And it was crazy. He was like, man, yeah, keep at it, man. You know, like you're really young in this game, and like keep training, and like you're going to fall in love with this. And like you keep going. And I keep bringing it up to him because like he remembers that day when I talked to him, you know. And that was when I met a lot of cats. Like, so I met Shamrock, I believe.
Yes.
And I met I met Pokey from the Cypher. And then there was another guy that Shamrock did music with. But he was the person that
talking about promoters for events.
yeah, but he also did music. He was also an MC. I
Yeah,
forgot
he was
his
an
name.
MC. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was weird because that was when freestyle session boards were popping, and that's how I found out about the jam.
That's right. FreestyleSession.com.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and me and my brother were helping out set up the jam just because we wanted to check it out, and that was how I connected with the Mac Community Charter School. Because then after that, I was teaching breaking over there
Oh wow.
in high school. Yeah.
Wow. So have you always been like in cultures or diverse in many cultures, I should say, like diverse
Yes.
cultures, skating, breaking, and then expanding outside your community and seeing like other ethnicities. And then you moved out of San Diego.
Yep.
When was that?
So I moved out. I graduated from Eastlake High in 2006, and I went to Berkeley fall 2006.
Was that a culture shock for you? Because I know San Francisco was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a big city. Like not even big city. I just meant by population, and a lot of like different cultures are there.
Yeah. Really, really cool story with that. So straight up, like, I didn't really have a role model when it came to like anything, I would say. Like, I had inspirations. I had people I looked up to, but I didn't really have people in terms of like, where do you go for the next step in life?
I don't want to make this about me, but I remember Danny, Bug-Eyed Bandit, Rock Bandit, talking to me like, hey, there's this Lancer guy I'm going to send to you. And I remember you coming up to me, and I was like, okay, I'll throw out some knowledge. So
Yeah.
that's cool. That's cool that you were still digging, even after high school.
Yeah. So I actually want to get into that because I want to let you know about that too. That was really great.
Okay.
So what happened was I was applying to Berkeley or like a bunch of UC schools. I was applying to UC schools and other colleges, and no one really helped me. Like, I didn't really know about anything. I didn't know how to do the application processes. I had a homie that gave me a book to read, like a book to read how to apply to colleges. You know what I mean? It wasn't like the internet.
Yeah.
And like I had no idea that Berkeley was like the #1 public university and all these things. Like I just didn't know. Like, yeah, I studied. I try to explore the world in a way I can, right? But you know, when you're from San Diego too, like and I didn't really have people to tell me certain things about the next step in high school. People just said go to college. And being from an immigrant family, right? Your family is trying to survive. Being from like a family, like my entire family from Laos. Not an entire, but like a lot of folks that came, they were refugees. They're trying to survive. They're trying to live, right? And we out here in Southeast where it's like pretty difficult, you know? And so they say go to college, and I'm like, what the hell is that? Or like, what do you mean go to college? Like, what am I trying to do? You know? So I had all these questions in my head, but I got accepted to Berkeley. And then that's when I was starting to hear about all these things. But I also got accepted to UCSD. I got rejected from a bunch of other places. And that was when I was in the freestyle session board saying, hey, how's the Bay Area scene like? Because I have no idea. Like, San Diego's a vastly different city from SF, from Oakland,
Correct.
from Berkeley, from San Jose and all that. And it was Bug-Eyed Bandit. It was Danny that said, hey, man, what's your number? And I gave him my number. I think we're on AIM chat or something, you know? And he's like, give me your number. He's like, let me give you a call. Because at that time, he was living up there. Yeah. So he gets on the phone with me for like 2 hours, almost 3 hours. And one of the first questions I asked him was like, yo, man, can I actually break up there? Like, is there, like, would I be able to break? Like, I didn't even, I think school was important, but I was like, can I still break? Like, is there a place for me to practice up there consistently? And he was like, dude, there's a practice spot at at Berkeley. And he was telling me about how the Bay Area scene was like, and it just sounded like gold to me, you know? Because, like, for me, I love San Diego. I love the community. I love my culture. But I felt like I needed to grow. I felt like it just wasn't enough. Like, I needed to go and be somewhere on my own. Like, I'm kind of like the loner type when it comes to, like, figuring things out and growing as a person. So I was like, I need to go there.
Well, I knew you as a b-boy, and then I learned you were a skater, and I was like, okay. And now you have you do photography as well.
Yeah.
And you have your own book as poetry, right?
Yeah.
So you're pretty diverse in the arts. How did that help you out? I mean, not to sidetrack you, but
Yeah. So I was writing poetry since late 6th grade, 7th grade, but it was very like the angsty. You got hormones. You're going through puberty.
Oh yeah.
You know, I had a lot of pent up emotions, and growing up where we come from, you could convert it in many different ways, but I always wanted to convert it in like expression and curiosity. So that's why skating was so dope to me, because it was like aggressive but super dope, super stylish. That's why I was so attracted to hip hop, because you create something from nothing. And you could change your energy. You could convert your energy and your emotions, and you could be expressive through breaking, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
And so with writing was another medium where I could write things out. Because I'm good at keeping things in, but if I want to express it, it would hopefully be in the form of art, right? A medium. So I was writing up until then. I didn't really care much about it, but when I was in Berkeley, I took a class called Poetry for the People, and I had a really good mentor, Marcos Ramirez. He kind of like was the catalyst to say, man, like, you have a voice in poetry. Like, here's all the techniques that you can learn. Let's unpack this, you know? And throughout that entire class, we unpacked it, and I found a voice in poetry where I couldn't find it in fantasy, in fiction or nonfiction writing, short story. I used to write plays. I actually wrote a lot, but I was never really confident or passionate in my work. But it was until I took that class where I was like, wow, writing can be so powerful.
Absolutely.
And at that point, I was still thinking about my history and my family's history and the war that, that brought our families and the Lao community here and the Southeast Asian community here. And I was learning all these things. And then one of the biggest things that hit me in that class was write or be written. And what they were trying to say.
Nice.
Yeah, it was June Jordan's Poetry for the People. And June Jordan and that whole class was like, if you're not going to write about your story, someone else will. Mm-hmm. And that's already a colonial way of thinking, right? Like in terms of someone else is going to come in and write about your story.
Correct.
And skew it. So if you have the power, you have the knowledge, you have the skills, write about your story, And I was like, oh, I found a purpose and I found my voice.
That's good.
So that was with poetry, and I kept writing poetry through like many, many years, and that's how the book eventually came along, because I was like, I could write about all these poems, but it was just a dream and a goal for me to be legitimate about it, to say, here is a book, like an official book from a press. Doesn't matter if it was big or small. But I signed with Satu Press, which is a Lao American publishing press.
Mm-hmm.
And we're still expanding, but I wanted to rock with them because I was sending out all my manuscripts and all my stuff to other publishing presses, and they weren't taking it. So it's just like college acceptances, right? All you need is one. And then you go from there. So I was getting all these rejections.
Mm-hmm.
They gave me an opportunity, and I was like, I'll rock with it, because we need to empower our own community. Like, we need to inspire other Lao writers or other Southeast Asian writers, other writers from any position, anything that I could connect with. I want to inspire them to be like, you can write too. Because where we come from, and you know this, a lot of people, a lot of young men too, right?
Mm-hmm.
We get into a lot of difficulties, a lot of trouble, right? Jail, gangs, drugs,
a lot of bad influences,
just a lot of bad
pressure.
Things. And I'm not saying like, oh, they're the bad guys. They're not, man. We're all products of our environment. Some people can adapt and adjust to it. Other people stick by it, right? So then my goal was like, those people are strong too. They have voices. They have men and women, whatever you want to call yourself, right? Like, people over there where we come from, they're strong people. They're expressive. They have love, and they have challenges. They have passions.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't know how to articulate it. So like, if there's anything I could do for my community to be like, yeah, you could do it too. You could be a writer. You could be a dancer. You could be a skater. You could be a community leader.
But you know that now because of your path.
Yes.
Because of what you've done.
Yeah.
So,
and I just hope to like share that, and that's why I stuck with Satu Press, and
nice.
That's why I'm still writing. And then photography, we could talk about that a little bit after. But yeah, that was 2012. That was when I lived in Vegas.
Nice.
And that was like a different motivation.
So what advice or suggestion or anything of everything that you have done helping you understand yourself or being open-minded to different cultures, everything that have you done that help you, looking like just thinking back, like a blessing of all the things you have done?
Yes, because my experience with diversity is the fact that for some reason, early on in life, I noticed people struggling, right? And then I noticed that we had a lot in common. We play two-hand touch football. We play skate. Next thing you know, mom and dad is calling you to go back home to eat, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, because I saw that kind of emotions and love from people when we were kids, some of them grew up, they became gangs or gangsters, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Some grew up and became their own kind of people, no matter what they are. But we always saw eye to eye. We're like, yeah, we were the same kids growing up on the block. And that's where I was like, oh, this is where you could see how we want to talk about American and diversity. Mm-hmm. Like, you start to find certain experiences, certain human drives. And I felt like it helped me because I didn't grow up being the only Asian dude. I grew up a lot of times being the only Lao person. That empowered me to tell people about my story, my community. But in terms of diversity, I could see how like people just want to do cool shit in their lives. People just want to do stuff and exist.
Oh yeah,
You know?
I can relate to that.
Yeah, people want to exist. We want to celebrate our identity, and it wasn't about superiority. That was the greatest thing, right? We didn't. I don't think anyone wanted to be way better than the other.
No, it's pride for what you came from and what you could do and what you
Yeah.
achieved. Yeah.
And then you start to see people's perspectives. For me early on, so I felt like I was blessed with that, because some people, they realize their identity in college. The first thing you do when you realize it, you get pissed off about all the imperialistic things, all the Western influences and aspects of colonialism that hit your community and your peoples, which is a very valid thing. But I would say that because I was able to hear stories and read things early on in my life, I was able to grow and evolve and change, or like help in terms of expressing those certain things instead of just getting mad about it all the time.
Oh yeah, a lot more understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I get it.
then you could process it, So I feel like that was a really great thing of coming up like that.
Oh, so you've been around all up in West Coast and experienced a lot through your own expression and others. Is there a time where you had to struggle with adversity?
Yes. So I will say this is what happens a lot, right? Here's my biggest struggle, and if you want to talk about adversity of like identity and ethnicity, right? Barely anybody knew. We're not even going to talk about the Asian stereotypes,
Okay.
right? Well, we will, but
Okay.
I'm saying that, first of all, not too many people knew who what like Lao people were, or people of Laos. No one even knew the country of Laos. With me growing up.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
No one, even to this day, no one knows like the war that happened. Everyone hears about the Vietnam War, right? And then you never heard about the reason why Laos was the most bombed country per capita in the history of the world right now. Like, we're the most bombed country. No one knows that because it was a secret war. There was an operative that brought us to America, right? The reason why I bring that up is because you become a minority in a minority.
Got it.
I'm Lao. Sometimes I was the only Lao person. And with our community, here's another fact. Lao folks are the least likely to get into college out of all Asians. Lao, Hmong, Cambodian were like the lowest in terms of Asians. Why? It's because, like I said, like where we grew up in our the whole refugee pattern, right? You throw us into these neighborhoods to survive, and no kind of programs to help us push up, right? So I'm out here trying to figure all these things out, trying to tell people about who Lao people are,
Okay.
and our history, and all of that. Now you go to Berkeley, you start to realize about how I could count how many people in my hand who were Lao.
Really?
Less than 10, right? And again, like you from my perspective, you start to see, yeah, we're diverse, but we're not, like I don't connect with a lot of East Asian Americans. Nothing on them, but I don't connect the same way as them. And I think the problem with a lot of Asians is we get packed together, right? We think our experiences are the same. I think the Filipino, I grew up with way more Filipinos than I did with Chinese.
And I'm sure people come to you and, oh, you must be
Yeah.
nothing but Lao, right? Correct?
Yeah.
Am I correct? Yeah.
Laos is the last thing on their mind, right? So just the idea of being a minority within a minority was already motivation for me to bring visibility, right? And to empower people within my own community who never saw anyone do much, right? So there was always like I said, I never really saw that kind of role model. So I was like, let me be that kind of person. Let me inspire others to be role models for people in our community as well. I think that was the main challenge that I had, and I used all my art to make it that way, right? The other thing too is when you're publishing as a writer, right? At the time, there wasn't many writers. A lot of people of color were really awesome, were really dope writers, even to this day, right? But when you publish, it goes back to money, right? It goes back to who can sell, and then who are the biggest sellers? Who are the people? The other thing too, right? Like, again, nothing on European and famous writers that were dead or whatever, right? But I never heard about poets that were writing about the certain struggles that I resonated with. We were all learning about white authors.
Oh, right.
White poets, and again, nothing on that. I'm just saying that. How can you resonate with? Sometimes, right? We're studying these things. Then when you're trying to publish, how do you tap into that? Because you already know poetry doesn't sell, or that's a known fact in general.
Okay.
But the poets that do sell are a certain demographic, right?
Makes sense.
And I mean, you even want to talk about a lot of my poetry too was about deconstructing the notion of growing up, you look at media, right? And you look at the lack of diversity in films and how they represent Asian men,
I see that.
So like making them demasculine, making them the foreign enemy, making them
exotic,
or like for men, desexualized men, non-masculine, and like what I love about now, which a lot of people are pitching into, is like we're complicated creatures, all of us, doesn't matter what background we are, right? But like the lack of diversity kind of hindered certain opportunities as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Many.
Absolutely.
And then for me, it was like, well, who wants to hear from a Lao poet? Who wants to hear from a Lao poet? Their story. What the fuck is a Lao poet? What the fuck is a Lao community member? That kind of thing. Even within the Asian community. So then it's even that much harder to say what is American, right? And then you want to talk about, so breaking, again, is really dope, really accepting, but you want to talk about photography now.
Okay,
right?
Let's get into that.
So photography.
Which I have to get in because this is shock to me, because I've always been in the arts, and a lot of artists don't necessarily see ethnicity. They just see an artist.
Yeah.
So, and that's my experience.
Yep.
They don't see Filipino four-eyed, this geeky,
Yeah.
they just see, oh, this guy's an artist.
Yeah.
But with you, it was different, or you're talking about more business aspects?
Both.
Okay.
So remember, there's a lot of perspectives and there's a lot of lacking perspectives, right? In hip hop, it's cool because there's a common denominator. We're trying to battle in breaking. You look at your skills, you could test yourselves. It doesn't matter who you are. That's why I love hip hop. It's a universal language. You go anywhere and connect with people. But in other arts too, there are challenges, right? So, I mean, tell me why when you look at certain people that are part of the ambassador program, I mean, right now, a lot of it, photographers are men, right? There's a huge lack of women photographers.
I don't know. I mean,
good ones, but you could look up, like, there was a whole thing about the Sony ambassadors or Nikon ambassadors.
Oh, okay, okay. I gotcha.
And I'm not calling them out in that regard. What I'm saying is there are still industries where, if you look at the portfolio of work, you look at the supermodel industry, right? Or look at models in general, right? There's a certain demographic. And then my whole thing about including diversity, right? If you look at my work, I definitely try to include all different kinds of people, where it's, LGBT community, Black, white, Asian, Southeast Asian, dark-skinned folks, light-skinned folks, like trying to make beauty the common denominator. Like, everybody's beautiful. But if you look at a lot of work that's still out there to this day, right, it's still geared towards one way. And let's say people of color photographers, right? I mean, can you name... Even my top famous photographers are white, and they're dope. They're amazing. I like that. But can we name really dope people of color photographers that are American, like Asian American dope photographers? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not talking about Asian. Asian's cool, but I didn't come up from that. In terms of, like, I didn't grow up in an Asian country. I grew up in America, so, like, Asian American. Name top Asian American anything, to this day. So that's something that I felt like I struggled with in terms of, like, someone came up to me, a Lao mom, and said, because you write, because my kids see you dance too, like you used to be a cast member for Jabberwockies, you battle, you perform, you're legit. I don't know if I'm legit as a b-boy, but like I could back up what I do. They're like, my kids see someone like you. You know, they see someone like you and they think they could do that now or do better.
Oh yeah,
because the fact that you exist, someone said
it's possible. Like
it gave me chills, and I was like, this is why diversity matters to me. So I'm challenged with trying to my main challenge is trying to be in spaces that aren't given to me or aren't available to me. And you got to be there. You got to go in there like a b-boy, like, yeah, I run this, or like I do this and I'm going to back up my work. And that's why I'm so motivated to go into all these spaces, whether it's the writing space, the breaking space, the photography world. Because I think a lot of photography, I think art in general, yeah, people see us for our work, which means I'm going to be very confident and brash about my work. But only because I see that when someone finds out who the artist is, they believe that they could do it because they can resonate with someone like me.
That definitely plays a big role.
Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does.
And I think that's where, even to this day, like there's not that many, right? Like, there's not that many Lao American anything. There's not that many Asian American anything. Now it's starting to be a certain way, but only now have we only started talking about representation in film and in the arts as Asian Americans.
Okay.
But again, it's still skewed, or it's still heavily favored towards a majority. And we're only beginning to unpack certain histories and backgrounds. So I feel like they would rather take in terms of a business, you go back to the business standpoint, what's going to sell the most still. It ain't going to be my stories, but I'm still going to write about them.
Right.
You know, whether or not anyone hears about it. So.
Well, I mean, part of me feels like, oh man, this is some sad times, especially with the presidency and all these sad news. But on the flip side, like I go to Asian film festivals and you see Instagram from different countries and like, oh man, they're just up in time with the art. They're not like information is helping push culture and diversity and around the world, and that brings me joy. I could relate and talk to someone in Poland I don't even know, but they see my likes and I like their likes, and we could chat and message and grow from there. You know, and not even see each other. So that to me is very like hopeful and inspiring.
That's the one thing I love about the internet, which is you can share that information. It wasn't available. You couldn't find someone from like Japan. You couldn't find someone from the Ukraine or like France or anywhere. Like, like, and if you did, it would take months to write mail or something.
Or you have to travel.
Yeah, to travel
out there and see. Yeah.
Now, yeah, you could. There's a lot of information out there, but you could still connect with people. Now you could globalize that kind of information, and some people are scared about how generic things have become. You know, like how generic things are being, or the trends. But the thing is, like, but then it's still an opportunity to create really dope, unique stuff, because now you have information readily available. It's really up to you to decipher it.
And going back to that digging thing.
Yeah, it goes back to digging. You're right. And the information is thrown at you, but the true information is truly digging. That's what I love about hip hop, man. Still, like, we used to dig for music to dance to, and that used to bring me so much joy, right? Then I used to dig for knowledge, which is why I called you. I felt like there was a void in my life in the breaking world and in my style. And I had to dig, and I had to find people that I respected to reach out and give a phone call and and to humble myself.
Okay.
And learn from you. And that was why I really appreciated when Bug Eye Bandit told me to reach out to you.
So how did I help? Not to make it about me. I'm just saying, like.
Yeah. And again, so I talked about diversity of communities, diversity of ethnicity, diversity of histories, right? Diversity of people. But there's also a diversity of thought that we need to tap into.
Absolutely, yes.
The complicated world of thought, right? So again, like people could look at you and be like, they could be labeled whatever, Filipino American, Asian American, this and that,
Pacific Islander.
Pacific Islander, which is all great, and you have a history that your community has gone through, but also you have your own personal history and your own journey, right? And then like, we don't want to be lumped into the same kind of narrative because we don't have the same narrative. You come from a punk era, you said, right? Like, punk was something that you grew up with. It was about the fuck you attitude. That was also hip hop, but it was also like, let me express myself in a certain way kind of thing, right?
Absolutely.
And me growing up, and you were the older folks like Rock So Fresh and all the other b-boys, Play School Society,
Delivery
Boys, Rhythm, but like these were the cats. I was in high school and you guys were already the young adults. You were the peoples that I wanted to battle, that I wanted to test myself against, because you guys were the bar, and the other people I were watching that I wanted to battle, right? But when you're young, you don't understand that. You don't understand why you dance the way you dance, why you dance so different from Rainin. I think it was you versus Rainin, or no, Joey Gold versus Rainin.
Yeah,
sorry,
infamous battle. Yes.
Yeah, that was a call out battle. Joey Gold versus Rainin, and then all the times Rock So Fresh battled. And they battled like the younger cats like GFX, cats that I was more close to. And it was like, let's go back to, let me pick your brain, because you came up differently from me. You had a different history and a different era of breaking. I came in breaking after you, And Danny was like, talk to him about music, talk to him about music. And when I talk to you about music and I talk to you about timing and breaking, it really helped me because I was able to understand how to take your time, how to chill out, and it's cool because me and you actually, it's cool. I think we have certain nuances. We think very similarly in how we approach breaking, but our styles still become so different. And I love that because the energy is still there. And when I called you, I felt like, oh, wow, like, as different as you are, it's cool that we think about it in the same regard. But there were so many things I could learn from you about taking your time and finding the right form. You're always talking about form. Like, like, this is your form. You're very particular. And you know exactly why you do what you do. And then for me, I question myself, do I know exactly what I'm doing? Sometimes I love being sporadic, though. I love just being random and instinctive, right? But it was like a warrior to another warrior. Like, let me see why you strike the way you strike. Let me see why you have that technique, your special technique. And not that I was going to copy it or take it, like, literally, right? But yeah, so calling you like that was really good because it was diversity of thought. I didn't think about that the way you did.
Okay.
And it brought me insight.
And I bring that up because I remember that conversation. And then I wasn't sure if I was clear in articulating what I was trying to say, but then seeing your take on it, that was interesting to me. I don't want to like, this is what I do, this is what you should do. I was like, okay, this is why I did it. Now let's see what you could take from that.
Yeah. And I think you were the one that said, you were one of the people that was also like, don't just think about how, think about why. Like, what's the motivation, right? And that motivation doesn't come in like, how do you learn from someone's style? How do you pick up what they want in their detail? First, you learn about the why, then you do the how. Because the why will motivate you and get you there. Then it made me think about everything. Like, then now we think about being retrospective. I have to think about why I do what I do now, right? And that why always guides the how.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah. And yeah, so whether it's breaking, whether it's photography, advocating for the community, I like it to be purpose driven. Sometimes it's great to have no purpose because sometimes as artists we shouldn't have a purpose.
Oh, it's always about the journey, right?
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
always about the journey.
We have to be expressive, but knowing the why would really help, and it has always been a common denominator for me, like the one kind of star if I feel lost. to understand why am I doing this? Why am I at Berkeley?
Oh yeah.
Why am I breaking? So things like that.
That's good. Always digging, always
Yeah.
finding out yourself, always like, I guess, culture driven.
Yeah.
And
culture is so important now, and here's the thing, I get it. I wasn't the only kid in a school full of white people. I wasn't. I was definitely in a very diverse place. But once you get past that, you start to realize there's so many complexities within people and our people and everyone else, right? That we need to unpack even further. And I think we're finally at a phase where we can actually talk about those things, whether it's people's mental game, their mental health, their cultural game, their art, like how they perceive art, how they perceive life, and we're still trying to break boundaries and break barriers and break glass ceilings.
Yes.
Again, actually, I haven't even talked about my professional life in terms of I'm an engineer. I'm an optical engineer, right?
Oh, you're pulling in more things.
Yeah,
right?
and not to get crazy into it, but I am back to being. First of all, I'm one of the few San Diegans. There's a lot of people that move into San Diego. I'm also one of the only Lao people at my company. Like I know maybe one or two more, right? And that's vastly different from people from China that work there, or like other Chinese Americans, or white folks, just and all the Asians, all the kinds of people, right? I don't know anyone that has something similar to me, being an engineer, being how I came up. So the cool thing about work is people want that diversity. They want to have people that came from many, many different backgrounds, right? But being where I come from, I know that I feel a little bit different, right? And that also motivates me, because then I could inspire others.
There you go.
To be an engineer, or to do whatever you want. You don't have to be an engineer, but hey, the path is there.
Right.
But it does feel lonely. That's the tough part sometimes. Not that I need anyone else to uplift me, but like sometimes it's cool when it's not a thing that you have to be concerned about. Like people can pick up on your nuances.
Got it.
Going back to the nuances, right? In a professional environment, even with engineering, the cool thing too is we're trying to solve technical problems, right? But solving technical problems is cool. Solving the kind of missions that we're doing is cool, but you also have to reach out to certain people that do not understand that, because they didn't have the resources for opportunities to learn about these things.
That makes sense. Completely makes sense.
Yeah. Especially the science field, right? How many people from Southeast came out to be scientists or engineers or people in college, right?
Well, I'm an automotive technician.
Yeah.
So with a technical mind, it's hard to connect with a lot of people that are like technically not in sound,
Yeah.
They're not cultured or diverse in that sense.
Yeah.
Like it's
hard
to make them understand like what's going on,
Yeah. And okay, you look at certain fields, the biotech field, right? You look at the biotech field, you look about health, you look about how do people get into the world of science, right? You want to look at DNA and all that, but it's like, how many people in these communities study that? How many people have that kind of funding? And then now you expect people to like work in these fields? Like it's not that simple.
Yeah, yes.
It's not that simple. So then we have to reach out to certain communities for STEM. Well, now they say STEAM because art is just as important, right? So like you reach out to these communities and say, this is what you can do, But if we don't bridge that gap, everyone's just going to be like, oh yeah, we could just do science, but for what purpose? Are we trying to serve better communities? Are we trying to look about health? Are we going to look at health only for those who could afford it, or like, for those that can study it? Or are we going to reach out to people that it hurts the most or that it affects the most? We won't know that. We won't know who the brightest person is going to be in this community, the biotech community, unless we reach out. So in the biotech field and the college spaces and the engineering fields, right? You have a certain group of people that come from certain backgrounds, right? Traditional backgrounds, But those kinds of educational foundations for the biotech, whether it's engineering, optical engineering, chemistry, chemical engineering, bioinformatics, like these sort of things aren't even talked about in schools, where a lot of the future generations can know about, you know, and there's an issue there because people are trying to study math, they don't know why.
That's me.
Yeah,
That's me.
You know what I mean? Like,
I did horrible in school. I didn't understand like how can I apply these things. There's no point.
Where's the application? Even physics. I did physics and astrophysics, right, as a major, and it's like there's so many applications for that, but I didn't know. I had no clue. I had to find it. But for the younger generation, you could tell people about what can be done in biotech. But if we don't reach out to these communities, they're never gonna know about that. They're never gonna know why software or coding or software engineering is important. They're never gonna know why bio is important besides studying cells, right? And to certain communities that do understand, they're already there at the head start. We got to pick up the people that are struggling. We got to pick up the people that have no clue or like.
But they have the mind for it.
They have the mind for it.
But they don't like. I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah, they have the drive and the passion. They just don't know where to direct it. And I felt like that was me my entire life. And no one was telling. There's like, be an engineer, be a doctor. I was like, what the hell is an engineer though? Now I know there are a million things in our life that you could do that engineering applies to, because there's many different engineering things.
Oh yeah, yes.
So like now when I go to college talks, I come with that in mind. I go to community colleges. Sometimes I do poetry workshops. I do talks about professional life. As an engineer, I talk about, I try to speak to a diverse group of people, because I want them to know that we need your minds. We need your background. We need your motivations. We need where you come from. Someone along the way is going to forget about you, but the fact that you're there, you're going to remind them that we need to look into these certain communities, right?
Right.
And that happens in the health field. There's a lot more people that can talk about health and certain communities of color that have certain health issues that we don't know about or we don't understand properly, because not enough research is being done on it. Not enough PhDs are being done in it, right?
Absolutely.
So we're having great progress, but there's so much work to do in so many industries. And my goal is to make sure that I can shorten that gap wherever I can, whether it's the arts or the technical field or the educational space or the, or even media or breaking or anything. It's like, that is one of my goals, to shorten that gap so that we as a community and as just Americans can evolve and
I'm with you 100%.
Yeah, like we could do this. And it's not like you did this bad or your history is whack or this is why things are the way they are. It's like, let's understand our histories, let's understand the struggles, let's understand the lack of diversity that happens, and let's take some action. Let's go in there. Let's take more photos. Let's write more poems. Let's write more scripts. Let's be in more films. Let's be more, in the college spaces or whatever. You don't have to be in college space. You could be an artist, be a YouTube artist, be a Twitch gamer, streamer, whatever. Whatever it is, it's like, just have that conviction to know that you're needed in that space.
It feels there's more adversity and lack of culture than it should be the opposite.
Yeah. And
completely.
And remember, these are these microaggressions that we don't talk about too much, right?
Right.
Because, I am sad for this world too, in our climate where there is a lot of truly blatant racist things happening, right? There are truly like really fucked up things in our political climate, but there are also these, me and you share that word, the nuances, these little details about microaggressions and certain things that can hinder us and we don't even know. And that's also the next step of how do we evolve and how do we break these things down? Because those are little things that they linger, man.
That's true. All right, man. It was like, I could talk for days with you. Like, there's a lot I knew. It was an honor, man. And
no, thank you, man.
Lancer,
thank you so much.
Real
Optic.
quick.
Much love to you, Optic.
So, where can we, like, if anybody wants to know about your photography, arts, your science, how can they connect with you? Like,
You can find me on Instagram at Bboy Lancer, and then my photography is at Snap Pilots, spelled correctly, Snap Pilots, and then Satu Press is at SAHTUPRESS.
for your poetry book, right?
Yeah, for
Which
poetry.
is Travel White Elephant.
Dance Among Elephants.
Dancing Among
so
Elephants,
I'm
there
working
you
on
go.
my second book. But Satu Press is the conglomerate. It's the larger press. We're trying to uplift other writers and all that from mainly Southeast Asian Americans. But we're gonna open it up even more. But yeah, you could find me there. My real name is Krisada Punsiri. You could find it somewhere online. And cats know me as Lancer. Just yeah, connect, and if you have an idea, let me know.
Perfect. Well, thanks for being in American, where diversity is our culture.
Thank you.